March 11th, 2011, changed the quiet suburb of Beacon Hill forever. The bodies of Michael and Jennifer Mitchell were discovered in their $1 million brownstone on 342 Chestnut Street. Jennifer, 42, lay sprawled across their bed, the $400 Hermes scarf Michael had given her for their anniversary wrapped fatally around her neck. Michael, 45, was found slumped against their imported wallpaper, an antique letter opener buried deep in his chest. Blood stained the Italian silk sheets that had witnessed 15 years of marriage, countless lies, and ultimately a deadly revenge. The air still carried Jennifer's signature Chanel No. 5, mixed with the metallic scent of blood. Her final note sat perfectly centered on the nightstand. 4 words in elegant calligraphy: "Now we're even, darling." No one in their elite social circle saw it coming. Not the other partners at Michael's investment firm. Not the wealthy patrons at Jennifer's art gallery. Not even Lisa Pearson, the young investment analyst whose lipstick stain still marked Michael's collar. The Mitchells had mastered the art of appearance, charity galas, summer homes, and perfectly curated social media posts. But beneath that polished exterior lurked a web of betrayal, disease, and murderous revenge. Their housekeeper found them at 6:43 a.m. when she arrived to prepare their morning coffee. The same coffee she had served them every morning for the past decade. She would later tell police that in all those years, she never heard them fight. Not once. The Mitchells knew better than to let their masks slip. They saved their true faces for that final, fatal night. If you're enjoying our content, quickly hit subscribe to join our community and never miss a moment. Let's dive in. Meet the Mitchells. To their neighbors in Beacon Hill, they were the couple who had it all. Michael Mitchell didn't just work in finance, he owned the 31st floor of Boston's glittering financial district. At 45, he was the youngest managing partner at Sterling and Mitchell Investment Group, the firm his father built from nothing. Every morning, his chauffeur would pull up in a midnight blue Bentley, Michael's reflection pristine in its polished surface. Tom Ford suit, Patek Philippe watch, and a smile that convinced everyone he deserved his success. His clients trusted him with millions because he looked like old money, even though he grew up in a cramped South Boston apartment. That hunger to prove himself never left, not in the boardroom, not in his marriage, and certainly not in suite 1504 of the Four Seasons, where he spent every other Thursday with Lisa Pearson. Jennifer Mitchell was Boston art royalty. The daughter of gallery owners, she turned the struggling Mitchell Gallery into the city's premier contemporary art space. At 42, she moved through high society like she was born to it, because she was. Her charity galas drew celebrities, her opening nights made careers, and her approval could turn an unknown artist into an overnight sensation. She wore her designer clothes like armor and her perfect marriage like a crown. Even her therapist, Dr. Thomas Cooper, never saw behind her practiced smile during their weekly sessions. Not until the day she found the hotel receipts. Lisa Pearson was everything Jennifer Mitchell wasn't. Young, hungry, and unpolished. At 27, she clawed her way up from community college to an analyst position at Sterling and Mitchell. She wore knockoff designer heels until she could afford the real ones, studied how the wealthy women carried their handbags, practiced their subtle mannerisms. She never meant to sleep with her boss, but Michael noticed her, really noticed her, during a late-night planning session. He saw past the fake Louboutins to her raw ambition, so much like his own. They all moved through the same exclusive circles, their lives intertwining at charity functions and gallery openings. They shared champagne toasts and air kisses, secrets and lies. Each of them saw pieces of the tragedy unfolding, but no one saw the whole picture until it was too late. Not even Marcus Jones, the charming photographer who caught Jennifer's eye at a gallery event. His photographs captured raw humanity in striking black and white. He had an eye for pain, for vulnerability, and a secret of his own that would set in motion a chain of events ending in 2 body bags. The Mitchells were Boston's golden couple for 15 years. Every Sunday, they hosted brunches in their Beacon Hill brownstone, the city's elite sipping mimosas while admiring Jennifer's latest gallery acquisitions. Michael commanded the room in his casual Ralph Lauren, telling investment stories that made their guests feel like insiders. Jennifer would rest her hand on his arm, laugh at exactly the right moments, the perfect complement to her ambitious husband. But behind the sparkling facade, hairline cracks were spreading. 2008 hit the financial sector hard. Michael spent endless hours at the office fighting to keep Sterling and Mitchell's legacy intact. Dinner reservations were canceled. Weekend trips postponed. Their annual summer house party in the Hamptons skipped for the first time in a decade. Jennifer understood, of course. She was bred for this life, taught from childhood that men of ambition required patience. Yet something shifted during those months. Michael stopped sharing market stories over their morning coffee. Jennifer ceased asking about his day. Tired of hearing "just busy, dear"? Their king-sized bed felt Olympic in its distance. Conversation turned procedural. Charity events, social obligations, household staff. They performed their marriage more than lived it. By 2009, they slept in different rooms. Michael claimed his late nights made him restless. Jennifer said his morning calls disturbed her sleep. Both pretended this was normal for couples of their status. They maintained their public appearances flawlessly. The Christmas gala at the MFA, symphony opening nights, charity auctions. In photographs from that year, they still looked perfect, just a little more space between their bodies. Smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Their last real conversation happened in January 2010, a month before the Vermont retreat. Over dinner at L'Espalier, Jennifer mentioned having children. They weren't young anymore, she said. Michael stared at his untouched salmon and spoke of market instability, of timing, of responsibility to the firm. The same excuses he'd used for years. Jennifer ordered another wine, designer shoes kicking off under the table. Michael checked his phone. That night, Jennifer cried in their bathroom, water running to mask the sound. Michael heard anyway, but instead of going to her, he went to his study and poured 3 fingers of scotch. When Lisa Pearson arrived at Sterling and Mitchell in early 2010, she represented everything Jennifer wasn't anymore. Hungry, attentive, uncomplicated. She laughed at Michael's jokes like they were fresh, leaned in when he spoke like his words were gospel. She needed him. After years of Jennifer's polished self-sufficiency, Lisa's desire felt like oxygen to a drowning man. The Vermont retreat wasn't the beginning of their problems. It was merely the moment Michael finally admitted their perfect life had become the perfect lie. What he didn't realize was that Jennifer had already seen the truth. She watched him pack for Vermont with the energy of a much younger man, noticed his new cologne, observed how he suddenly cared about which tie to wear to the office. She recognized the signs, had seen them in her father, in her friends' husbands, in every wealthy man who thought he was being subtle. Lisa and Michael's affair began like they all do, with small compromises. It was February 2010 when Sterling and Mitchell sent their top executives to the Four Seasons in Vermont for their annual strategic retreat. Snow fell outside while Michael Mitchell reviewed quarterly projections in the hotel's private conference room. Lisa Pearson sat 3 seats away, her fresh analysis making his veteran partners look complacent. She spoke with the kind of hunger he hadn't felt since his early days, back when he still had something to prove. That evening, over aged whiskey in the hotel bar, Lisa asked the kind of questions Jennifer had stopped asking years ago, about his dreams, his fears. The son of a dock worker who now controlled billions. Her hand brushed his as she reached for her glass. The band played "The Way You Look Tonight." Winter wind rattled the windows. They never made it back to their separate rooms. What started in Vermont should have ended in Vermont. Instead, it became a carefully orchestrated dance of late meetings and business conferences. Michael bought a second phone. Lisa learned which hotels didn't ask questions. They crafted their alibis with the same precision they used for market analyses. Michael Mitchell was meticulous in everything, except hiding his affair. Over 3 months, his mistakes piled up like evidence in a prosecutor's file. March 3, 2010, the first crack in his perfect facade. Michael bought Lisa a Cartier love bracelet, $12,000, charged to his personal card. He forgot Jennifer handled all their financial statements. When the bill arrived at their Beacon Hill address, Jennifer recognized the purchase. The gift wasn't meant for her. Her own Cartier pieces were always platinum, never gold. April 15th, 2010, their 15th wedding anniversary. Jennifer sat alone at L'Espalier for 2 hours, making excuses to friends who passed by. Michael claimed he was stuck in Providence with clients. Later, his secretary accidentally mentioned there hadn't been any Providence meetings that week. May 22nd, 2010, the mistake that broke everything. James Porter, a first-year associate at Sterling and Mitchell, was having dinner at Catalyst in Cambridge when he saw them. Michael and Lisa, tucked into a corner booth, his hand covering hers on the table. Michael's wedding ring was missing. The next morning, James mentioned the lovely dinner with Mr. Mitchell and Miss Pearson during a staff meeting. Word traveled fast in Boston's financial district, faster still in its social circles. These weren't just slip-ups. They were breadcrumbs leading Jennifer straight to the truth about her husband's affair. Each discovery pushed her closer to hiring the private investigator who would ultimately confirm what she already knew. Michael Mitchell was having an affair with his young analyst. She hired Winston Blake, the same private investigator her mother had used to catch her father's indiscretions 30 years ago. Blake delivered a manila envelope 2 weeks later. Inside, photos of Michael and Lisa entering the Four Seasons, time-stamped security footage from their business trips, credit card statements for meals and gifts Jennifer never saw. That night, she poured herself a glass of Chateau Lafite Rothschild 1982, Michael's prized bottle, and opened her laptop. With practiced precision, she typed 2 words into a search bar: high-end escorts. The game of betrayal had begun, but Jennifer Mitchell wasn't playing to win. She was playing to destroy. After discovering Michael's affair in May 2010, Jennifer Mitchell did what wealthy Bostonians always do with their problems. She sought therapy. Dr. Thomas Cooper wasn't just any psychiatrist. He was Beacon Hill's keeper of secrets, the man who helped Boston's elite navigate their private scandals without creating public ones. The photos arrived today, Jennifer told Dr. Cooper during their first session in June 2010. Her private investigator, Blake, had delivered irrefutable evidence. Michael and Lisa entering the Four Seasons at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. Exiting at 6 p.m., Lisa's blouse wrinkled, Michael's tie loose. 3 more hotels, 6 different dates, 2 months of surveillance summarized in time-stamped photographs. "I want to destroy him," Jennifer admitted in their 4th session, her perfect composure cracking. "Not divorce him, destroy him." Dr. Cooper noted her words carefully, watching his patient transform from grieving wife to calculated avenger. Jennifer had learned from her mother's generation that divorce was admitting defeat. Revenge, however, revenge was power. By July 2010, Jennifer began her methodical retaliation. She chose her venues carefully: the Ritz-Carlton, Mandarin Oriental, XV Beacon, places where wealthy men knew the value of discretion. A banker from New York, a lawyer from Chicago, a surgeon from Los Angeles. Each encounter carefully documented in her diary, each stranger a bullet in her loaded gun. Then in October 2010, at her gallery's fall showcase, she met Marcus Jones. He wasn't like the others. A photographer whose work captured raw human pain, whose touch made her feel alive again. For the first time since discovering Michael's betrayal, Jennifer felt something real. Marcus stayed until morning, shared cigarettes and secrets, taught her about art and desire. He never mentioned the lesions on his back. She never asked the right questions. November 15th, 2010, Jennifer sat in her doctor's office at Mass General, gripping her Burberry coat as the words "HIV positive" shattered her world. The source was clear. Marcus Jones had been diagnosed months before meeting her. Her revenge against Michael had backfired catastrophically. Or had it? That evening, she wrote in her diary, "Michael broke our marriage with one woman. I'll end it with a virus." She stopped seeing Dr. Cooper, no witnesses needed for what would come next. She canceled her hotel liaisons. Her weapon was already loaded. Instead, she turned to Michael with practiced remorse, offering reconciliation. He was so eager to believe she'd forgiven him, so desperate to preserve his perfect life, he never questioned her sudden change of heart. December 2010, they resumed sleeping together. Jennifer played the role of forgiving wife flawlessly, all while knowing that every intimate moment pushed them closer to mutual destruction. Michael, relieved to have his perfect life back, never noticed her watching him sleep, counting down the days until his annual physical in February. The betrayal that started with lipstick on a collar would end with poison in their veins. By March 11th, 2011, they would both be dead. Their twisted game of revenge claiming 2 lives in one night. January 2011. Michael Mitchell ended things with Lisa Pearson in his corner office on the 31st floor. She took it better than he expected, straightening her skirt and walking out with her head high. Only the slight tremor in her hand as she closed his door betrayed her emotion. Later that week, she requested a transfer to the New York office. Michael threw himself into saving his marriage with the same intensity he used to close million-dollar deals. Weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard, surprise deliveries from Tiffany's, long dinners where he confessed everything, well, almost everything. Jennifer accepted his apologies with a grace that amazed him. She never raised her voice, never demanded answers, just smiled that perfect smile and welcomed him back to their bed. Michael's annual physical, standard procedure for the firm's insurance, blood work, cholesterol, PSA levels, HIV screening. He barely glanced at the forms as he signed them. February 28th, the doctor's call came during a board meeting. Michael stepped out, annoyed at the interruption. 5 minutes later, security cameras caught him stumbling into the executive bathroom, vomiting up his expensive lunch. That evening, he sat in his study, tracking backwards through time. Only Jennifer. For years, only Jennifer. Except Lisa. But she was clean, the firm's medical records confirmed it, which meant March 10th, 2011, 9:47 p.m. Michael came home early, medical records gripped in his shaking hands. He found Jennifer in their bedroom, writing calmly in her diary, the same diary that detailed every calculated step of her revenge. "How long have you known?" His voice was steady, dangerous. He threw the HIV test results onto her vanity. Jennifer applied her lipstick, Chanel's Rouge Allure in Pirate. "About as long as you've been fucking your analyst." She turned to face him. "Though I've been much busier than you, darling. Marcus was just the beginning. Would you like to know how many others there were?" "You're insane," Michael whispered, his world crumbling around him. "You deliberately infected me." Jennifer laughed. "No, my love, I evened the score. You broke our marriage with one woman. I shattered it with dozens." Michael snapped. Years of controlled, wealthy upbringing disappeared in an instant. He lunged for Jennifer, grabbing the scarf from her vanity chair. In their struggle, he wrapped it around her neck, pulling tighter and tighter. Jennifer didn't fight back. Instead, she smiled through her final breaths, her hand already gripping the antique letter opener from her bedside table. As the life drained from her eyes, she used her last ounce of strength to plunge the letter opener deep into Michael's chest. He staggered backward, hitting the wallpaper he'd imported from Italy, shock registering on his face as he looked down at the ornate handle protruding from his heart. They died moments apart. Jennifer on their marriage bed, the scarf still wound around her neck, that final victorious smile frozen on her face. Michael slumped against the wall, the letter opener buried in his chest, the full weight of their mutual destruction evident in his final expression. The Mitchells' perfect life ended in a murder-suicide, each of them taking the other down in one final act of revenge. When their bodies were discovered hours later, Jennifer's diary lay open on the nightstand, her last entry reading, "Now we're even, darling." March 11th, 2011, 6:43 a.m. Maria Suarez had worked for the Mitchells for 10 years. She used her key like any other morning, expecting to start the coffee and prepare Michael's protein smoothie. Instead, she found a crime scene. By 7:15 a.m., red and blue lights painted Beacon Hill's pristine facades. Detective Sarah Reeves stood in the doorway of the Mitchells' master bedroom, taking in the details that would haunt her nights for months to come. Jennifer Mitchell sprawled across Egyptian cotton sheets, Hermes scarf pulled tight around her delicate neck. Michael Mitchell slumped against designer wallpaper, Venetian letter opener buried in his chest. A year's salary and jewelry scattered across imported marble floors. The investigation moved with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Crime scene techs photographed blood spatter patterns. Medical examiners documented ligature marks and stab wounds. Evidence bags filled with items that would tell the story: Jennifer's diary, Michael's second phone, a stack of medical records, hotel receipts, a laptop with a cracked screen. March 12th, Lisa Pearson's New York transfer was canceled when Boston PD asked her to stay in town. She sat in an interrogation room, mascara smeared, detailing every hotel room, every lie, every promise Michael had made. Her hands shook as she identified photos of private dinners, secret weekends, stolen moments in his office after hours. Dr. Thomas Cooper wrestled with conscience and confidentiality before turning over his session notes. Jennifer's perfect mask had cracked in his office first. He'd watched her transformation from wounded wife to calculated avenger, documented in careful psychiatric shorthand. The pieces came together like a jigsaw puzzle made of razor blades. Each new discovery drew blood. Security footage from Boston's finest hotels showed Jennifer's systematic revenge. Medical records revealed the deliberate path of infection. Bank statements tracked Michael's guilt through expensive gifts. Cell phone records mapped out the geography of betrayal. Jennifer's diary laid out her plan in elegant cursive. But it was Marcus Jones who provided the final piece. Found in his Chelsea studio, his own diagnosis dated months before meeting Jennifer. In his photographs of her, Detective Reeves saw something the society pages missed: the look of a woman who had turned her pain into a weapon. The investigation answered the how, the when, the who. But the why? The why lived in the spaces between evidence markers, in the ruins of a marriage built on appearances, in the desperate acts of people who had everything to lose, and in the end, they lost it all.